Hi, everyone. Welcome to the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources Ambassador Q&A. My name is Kristen Coffey. I'm the coordinator of recruitment for the college. Tonight, I am joined by my colleague, April Brohan, and many of our wonderful student ambassadors who are going to talk to you all about their student experience. So throughout our information session tonight, please feel free to add questions in the chat box. I know some of you submitted questions ahead of time, but send us all the questions that you have because we want to make sure that you get those answered throughout our presentation. And if you'd like, you can also in the chat right now, enter in any of your academic interests and major interests so we can keep those in consideration as we're talking about our programs. So at this time, I am going to turn it over to my colleague, April Brohan, to introduce herself and to talk to us a little bit more about what the college has to offer.
Awesome. Thanks, Kristen. So hi, everyone. As Kristen said, my name is April Brohan. I am the program director for recruitment and student engagement. So I primarily oversee recruitment with Kristen. I work with student scholarships, and I also work with some of our student clubs and organizations in the college. So tonight, I want to tell you, we're just going to do a brief overview and then turn it over to the star of our show, the students, like Kristen said. So yeah, Kristen, if you want to advance the slide. Awesome. So here in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, we're one of the 12 colleges and schools that make up the University of Maryland. So we're advising colleges, meaning that we oversee the advising portion of a subset of the majors that the university offers. There's about 90 different majors on campus, but in the college, we oversee the 8 that are on your screen. And you can see within those 8, there's lots of different options. In total, there's about 32 different program options and counting within our programs. But the common theme throughout all of them is we focus on the connection between agriculture, food, and the environment. So those 3 areas are 3 things that really sustain both our lives as well as the lives of everything on this planet. We all need food, shelter, all of those things to sustain us. So we look at those connections and we take both a STEM approach through programs like animal science, plant sciences, nutritional science, our environmental, ag science and tech. But then we also have programs like our agricultural and resource economics that look at more of the finance, the economic, the business side of things, depending on how you concentrate within that. And then landscape architecture combines that science with design. So our students will be able to tell you all about these programs and their interests and why they chose it tonight. So I don't want to go into too much detail and steal thunder from them, but we were able to get ambassadors from nearly every program of the 8 major ones. So I'll let them tell their stories. In total, just for an idea of how large we are, or small rather, as a college, we have about 1,200 undergrads between those 8 majors. So of a university that has everything a big state school could have, including 30,000 students, you get that small academic feel within our college and that small community through our programs. Another thing about our college that's unique, in addition to these 8 academic majors that are offered at the bachelor's level, we do have a program called the Institute of Applied Agriculture, which offers 2-year certificate programs. These are 60 credit certificates, which essentially makes them equal to an associate's degree. So we do have a good amount of students who may start pursuing an Institute of Applied Agriculture certificate and then continue to complete a bachelor's degree, and they graduate with 2 credentials. So the areas that are focused within the Institute are on your screen. They include agriculture, business management, turf and golf course management, sports turf management, landscape management, ornamental horticulture. They're very practical, hands-on based that students can go directly into a career field, or they can apply that to a bachelor's program. And all students who apply to Maryland as freshmen to a major within our college get reviewed for the Institute of Applied Agriculture admission if they're not offered a spot in our freshman class. So it's an opportunity to still come to Maryland and pursue a degree and be on a 4-year track just in a non-traditional route, which is a really exciting program we offer. As I mentioned previously, in addition to recruitment, I oversee our scholarships for the college. We're very fortunate in the college that we offer about $500,000 in scholarships annually to our students. And we do offer those to incoming students as well as our continuing students. So we have 2 application periods for our scholarships. One is for the freshmen. That applications due around March 1 every year. We open that application usually a week before the admissions decisions are going out, because we don't want you to waste your time applying if you haven't decided or heard back from Maryland yet. So we'll notify you when that's open after you've been admitted, so that you can submit that application, be considered for our financial scholarships. As a transfer or a current student, we do open that process annually so students can reapply or apply for additional funding. And then we also have study abroad scholarships through the college. We're really excited. We just got a brand new one that we'll be launching this spring, hopefully, if next fall, if nothing else. COVID's kind of put us on the back burner a little bit with that, but study abroad's reopening, so the scholarships go to as well. Additionally, if you're a Maryland resident, we have an incredibly unique program called the Catherine M. Brinkley Loan. That's solely for students in our college and offers a 0% interest-free loan to qualifying Maryland residents based on your free application for federal student aid, your FAFSA. If you receive any funding from Brinkley, you have 10 years to pay back the funds that you borrowed without accruing a dime of interest. So after those 10 years, you do start to accrue interest, but it's an extremely low, less than federal rate. It's stagnant at 5%. So that is an option that we provide our students added benefit. So those are our scholarship programs and our financial aid in the college. Gives you a little bit of overview. We'll talk a little bit about some important things related to applications at the end. But for now, I want to turn it over back to Kristen and to the stars of our show, the ambassadors. So
Awesome. And thanks, April.
And I just want to reiterate what you said earlier, Kristen, in the chat. Feel free to put any questions you have at any point in the chat. If you're not comfortable putting them publicly in the chat, you can direct message them to myself or Kristen Coffey. So thank you, guys.
Thanks, April. So at this time, our ambassadors are going to come on screen, and we're going to make sure that their videos get pinned up so that we can see them all. Wonderful. We've got everybody here. Great. So at this time, the ambassadors are going to start with introducing themselves. They'll tell us who they are, where they're from, what they're studying, what year they are, and some of the things that they're involved in on campus. So we'll start with Emily.
Hi guys, I'm Emily Hillig. I'm a senior dietetic major. I am from Northern Virginia, and I'm involved in the Dean Student Advisory Council, Student Dietetic Association, some research organizations on campus, and obviously a student ambassador.
Eliza.
Hi, I'm Eliza. I'm a junior doing a double degree in animal science on the pre-vet track and Spanish. I am from Germantown, Maryland, and then on campus, I'm involved in SketchUp comedy, Sigma Alpha professional agricultural sorority, pre-vet society, agricultural college ambassador. I think that's every. Oh, and I'm also doing research on campus under one of the professors.
Sidra.
Hi everyone, I'm Sidra. I'm a senior agricultural science and technology major, and within that, my concentration is in environmental horticulture. I also have a sustainability minor here. I'm from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and on campus, I'm involved in Ag Ambassadors, the Dean Student Advisory Council as well, and I'm very involved with the Memorial Chapel.
Maya.
Hello, my name is Maya Kessler. I am a junior landscape architecture major. I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm right around Philadelphia, just 30 minutes out of the city. And I'm involved in our environmental fraternity on campus, the horticulture club, the Student Association of Landscape Architects, and other fun stuff.
Jana.
Hi, I'm Jana. I'm a junior ENST and GIS double degree. I'm from Anne Arundel County, Maryland, and I'm involved with University Honors, Fire, and Manners.
Maeve.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maeve. I am a senior environmental science and policy major with a concentration in geosciences and restoration. I'm from Yardley, Pennsylvania, which is outside of Philadelphia. And on campus, I'm involved with the Geology Club, AGNR ambassadors. I was a scholar student, and I work in a soils lab on campus.
And Jared.
Hi, I'm Jared. I'm a senior agricultural and resource economics major. I'm from South Jersey, and on campus, I am involved in some research as a McNair scholar, the AREC student advisory, AGNR ambassadors, and I'm also involved with Model Congress.
Awesome. Thank you all. So our next question is, why did you choose the University of Maryland, and what made you choose your major within the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources?
Great. So I did not start at University of Maryland. I started at San Diego. And then when I really started to get more serious about my degree in dietetics, I realized that University of Maryland has one of the top programs in the country. For people who don't know, dietetics has an internship, and the match rate is well above 90%, which is a lot higher than any other university in the country. So I felt that if I wanted to get the best dietetic education that I could, I would go to Maryland.
For me, a really big part of choosing Maryland was the fact that we have a farm on campus. A lot of schools with animal science programs will have a farm, but you'll have to drive or take a bus to get there. But the one in Maryland is right next to the animal science building, so it's really accessible, and you get to work with animals from pretty much day one. And then I also came from a pretty small high school. So I kind of wanted to get out of the bubble and come to a big university, but the agriculture college sort of had that balance. So it wasn't jumping headfirst into a scary environment. I had a smaller community that I could go back to as well.
When I was looking at schools, I was looking at a lot of bigger state schools because I was interested in kind of like a niche, which was like the plant science department. So I had to pick kind of big state schools that had those opportunities. So Maryland like really set itself apart from the other ones because it had such a huge plant science department, so much research going on, like huge greenhouse facilities, lots of possibilities for internships. So it really set Maryland apart from a lot of the other state schools. And also the fact that Maryland's such an agriculturally focused state really drew me to Maryland.
When I was looking at schools, I was really focusing on finding landscape architecture accredited programs. And my two biggest options were here in Penn State. And the really amazing thing about here is that we're so close to the city. Penn State's in the middle of nowhere. Here, close to the city, you have a bunch of firms that are in the city that you can go and visit and gain a lot of learning from, and they can come to see you and critique your work. And I think that was definitely a selling point for me. Also, it's a beautiful campus. I love walking around. I love sitting and doing my homework out on the mall, and it's a great community of people.
I grew up around the university, so I kind of had a lot of exposure to it, and that's what really made me apply. But also to try and get out of my comfort zone. In high school, I didn't really participate in many things. So here I made sure I knew there were a ton of opportunities, and I took advantage of all of them for as much as I could.
I chose Maryland because it has a very unique environmental science department major. wasn't sure when I went into the major if I wanted to do science or if I wanted to do policy. And so at UMD, the ENSP major has concentrations, allowing you to like subspecialize in an area of environmental science that you're interested in. So if I wanted to do just policy or just working on the social aspect of environmental science, I could do that and I wouldn't have to take an extensive number of science classes. But if I wanted to do science, I could take a bunch of science classes and not have to take those humanity courses.
I chose UMD because it was a really good school with really good ag programs that was not, like someone else had said, in the middle of nowhere. It's really close to DC, which gives us a lot of really good opportunities with different government agencies and different NGOs for different internship and employment opportunities there.
Very well, thank you all. So within your majors, can you talk to us about your courses, what they're like? Are they hands-on? Do you get a lot of lab experiences? What's a kind of a typical course load day look like for you?
So the dietetic major, a misconception I had is it's very science heavy, a lot more science heavy than I anticipated. We take probably all in all, probably 12 to 14 science classes that goes anywhere from Gen Chem to Biochem 2, along with some bios, but they really set you up for success in your advanced nutrition courses, medical nutrition therapy. Just you can see the whole, like the light bulb moment, and you're like, oh, that's why I had to sit through so many classes, just because everything comes together. But right now I'm in my nutrition courses. I'm doing medical nutrition therapy 1. I'm doing advanced human nutrition and food service. So we're actually cooking. We have a cooking lab in class. So it's really going to be interesting to make different cuisines, learn, knife skills, how to properly cook things. Last week we learned the difference between stir and pan fry. I thought I knew it, but I didn't.
For me, freshman year, first semester, you take Animal Science 101 and 103, which is the lab associated with it. And so that's kind of like an introduction to all the animal science classes you're going to take. Dr. Balcom, who teaches it, has all the different professors guest lecture. So you kind of get to meet all the professors that you're going to have if you stick with that major. And then 103 is learning how to handle animals. So pigs, chickens, sheep, dairy and beef cows, all of those farm animals, you from week 1, they're like, here's some pigs, we're going to teach you how to herd them. So that's been great. And then of course there's all the science classes, because vet schools have a pretty high requirement for science classes. UMD makes you take pretty much every class that a vet school could require, so that you're not sort of struggling to figure out what you're missing when you apply to vet school. And then they have really cool management classes. I took sheep management, so you take care of a pregnant ewe and her lamb and do all the medical care for that. So it's a really good mixture of like intense science courses, but also being able to apply them, which I really like.
With my major, as well as probably everyone's major, they make you take such a wide variety of classes. So my major is agricultural science and technology. So we also start with things like animal science, and then we go into like horticulture, because I have a horticultural concentration. And then we take classes on the food system. So last semester I took a global food systems class and kind of a resource economics class, plus all of your traditional plant sciences like plant physiology, plant pathology, soil science. So we basically cover a whole wide range of things. I know for my major especially. We also have lots of labs. Like this semester, I'm in 3 different labs. So they're all like 3-4 credit classes. Each have like an accompanying 3-hour lab per week. So it's a lot more hours in class than let's say an English major. But it really helps us to get like a wide view of my major and kind of the department. So I think that's really helpful.
So in landscape architecture, your first year is very different from the rest of your years. So freshman year, you're taking a lot of introductory classes. You're learning about the background and the history of landscape architecture. You're learning about like the structures of the profession and like what it's going to look like when you get a job and the kind of things that we get to do. And then when you move into starting in your sophomore year, there is a lot of hands-on work. You basically go into your first studio classes, which is a couple hour classes, long classes, where you're basically just working. You're working in groups, you're working by yourself, you're working with your professor at desk critiques where they tell you what they do and do not like, and then you fix it and learn from that. And it's very, very hands-on. I just got back from my 4-hour studio, and it's a lot of fun working with students, your fellow students, and designing.
For ENST, there's a good mix of policy or humanities and science courses, despite the name. This also depends on your concentration. I'm in natural resources management. That's probably more on the policy side of all of the different ENST concentrations. But in terms of workload, the advisors are so nice and willing to work with you so that you're not taking like all chem biophysics in the same semester. You could split it out and be more relaxed and take advantage of other opportunities during the semester.
Like I mentioned earlier, ENSP, since we have so many concentrations, encompasses a very wide range of courses. So if you have a more science heavy concentration, you'll be taking those calculus classes, physics, chemistry classes. However, if you want to go more the humanities route or policy, you will take mostly policy classes, or you could take mostly, anthropology classes, wildlife classes. So really, it's a wide range of classes that you'll be taking. Obviously, the science ones are going to have more labs where you're doing in-person experiments in the actual lab. And other ones, the professors will take you on field trips to actually see the different phenomenons happening in the real world, with maybe storm runoff or river processes, things of that nature.
For agricultural and resource economics, you start out your first couple semesters taking a lot of benchmark classes, getting that grounding in economics and math and econ theory, in order to move into the classes later that discuss a lot of different things. There's farm management courses, there are business courses with the business school that some AREC majors take in order to focus in agribusiness. What I focused in my field of study in was political process. So I've taken a lot of courses about agricultural and food policy and the commodities markets. So the AREC program gives you a really strong basis in general economics, but then takes it one step further and gives you a lot of experience and knowledge in applied economics, which helps you understand not just theories on the page, but how they affect people, farmers, the way that we get our food, and different agricultural products.
Great, thank you all. Just to let you know, we do have a couple student ambassadors who are behind the scenes in the chat helping answer questions, and we are going to also get to all those questions live. So please keep sending them in. You guys are asking really awesome questions. We did get a question about the ideal candidate for our program. Just to let you all know, in terms of applying to the University of Maryland, all students who complete their application for admission are reviewed on what we call a major blind basis. So the major that you put on your application is not part of the review factor for the university. They do look at everything else that you submit. So your grades, your academic rigor, your leadership, involvement, test scores if you choose to submit them, which we'll talk about more at the end. So they look at everything that you submit as a whole, and then if you are admitted, your major is tacked on at the end. So just to let you know that there's nothing specific that AGNR looks for or does, but I think it's a great question to ask, and I'll ask our ambassadors is, what do you think makes a successful AGNR student?
So I think one important thing to think about is when I applied to Maryland, I thought of not only how can this school help me, but how can I help this school eventually, right? So providing, hold on, I had something, I promise. Come back to me.
Can you repeat the question just because I, for some reason, forgot it?
Okay, what do you think makes a successful AGNR student, or what have you found that helped you be successful?
For me, something that I think is really important to be a successful student is to manage your time well, not just in terms of like get all your homework done efficiently, but also have time to try new things. I think it's especially important to get to know people in your classes, because at least with animal science, the cohort is pretty small. And so, you know, you find study groups and things like that. So sort of making a community that you can help push each other forward is always great. And then just making sure that you're organized in everything that you do so that you're not forgetting anything. I know these are, whoops. I know these are sort of like foundational things, but it's the basics that are really important to have a hold on.
I remembered, oh, really quickly before Sidra goes. So flexibility, but not only with schoolwork, but being willing to adopt new studying habits, especially for those sciences. What you did in school could have worked really well, but you have to be adaptable. You have to be flexible. And because of where we are in, you know, so close to DC and Baltimore, eagerness as well, and not being afraid to say yes. There's so many programs out there that the school offers through listservs and stuff like that. I feel like a great AGNR candidate are the ones that come to my mind. Go for any opportunity, because the worst they can say is no.
I agree. Going off of what Emily said, kind of something similar. Put yourself out there for opportunities that you wouldn't normally do. For example, like a program like we're all in right now, Ag Ambassadors. It's something that, you know, you get an email, they're looking for people to find new ambassadors. It's something you could just say yes and take a chance on it. And like maybe you'll meet a few new people or help incoming students or something like that. So I think getting involved in like some college-based organizations is really, really helpful. And I think they only like make you more, they only improve your student experience. I think getting involved in the college level is really important with also college-based clubs and organizations, like horticulture club or in like soil science or stuff like that. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree with all that, definitely. I think it's hard to say what the perfect student is going to be for this college because there are so many things within this college. There's so many different majors, and they all have different, you know, different ways of studying, different ways of learning, different ways of thinking. For example, landscape architecture, I had to completely switch my brain from, you know, high school thinking very numerically, you know, studying for science and everything, to thinking really creatively and learning how to not be burnt out by only thinking of creative thoughts. So I think that's all really different. But if you're a student who's sitting there and thinking, well, I don't know what major I want to go into, but I know that I want to go into AGNR, I think it's important that you appreciate nature and like ecosystems and services around you. You appreciate food, you appreciate what the land does for you, you appreciate animals, you appreciate those interactions between people and the earth. And I think if those things are important to you, then you are the right student for this college.
Yeah, I was going to say what Emily said. Don't be afraid to take risks.
I will say that once you get into a class that you really like, a course that you really enjoyed with a professor that you thought was really great, always become friends with those professors. Don't start first semester of your freshman year. I did that and it was probably the best decision I ever made, because you now just have more people in your corner being willing to support you, being willing to write those letters of recommendation, because sometimes college can feel very lonely. And so having that support system that you've created since day one of professors who know you and know that you work hard to help you kind of get through maybe some difficulties you're having in other courses is really valuable.
I would say that the most important thing is a lot of our classes, especially once you get farther into your major, are very small. So you have a lot of opportunity to talk to your professors during class, after class, in office hours, and especially now with different kinds of virtual office hours, you're always able to get in contact with professors, and they have such a small class size that they really are so willing to help you and make sure that you're learning the material in a way that not only helps you for the course, but helps you for what you're going to do next, whether it's graduate school or your career. So I would say that making that relationship with your professors is really important for being a good AGNR student.
Cool. Thank you all. So we had a question come in about research opportunities, and especially if they're available for first year students. So if any of you were involved in research, whenever you got involved, if you could talk to us about your experience and how you got started.
I can start. So my first semester here, I started as a sophomore, but I guess I was a freshman first year student. I was in a health class. My professor was very interesting. They were two PhD students. I was like, hey, I'm interested in, what you're researching. Can I join your research lab? They said, yeah, go through this interview process. I went through it. I got it. It had nothing to do with my major. It was in the School of Public Health, but it was something that was near and dear to my heart. It was working with homeless individuals and parents in the foster system, so teen parents. And then as I, went through my undergrad career, I joined a it worked with Meals on Wheels, looking at food insecurity with the geriatric population, but kind of going off of what everybody said from the last question, befriend your professors. My professor reached out to me in May. She said, hey, I have a research opportunity with USDA that is paid. Would you like to do it? I didn't even apply. They just that teacher's recommendation and knowing my drive for the topic that it was on can just set you up for success, especially with research positions. And also online, I don't know if someone already put that in the chat, but there's a website. It's kind of hard to navigate, but I can send the stuff. And those are all the different opportunities within the College of AGNR for research.
I am also in a research lab on campus as well. And that position became aware to me through a professor's class that I was taking. And if you want to get involved in research in the first semester of your freshman year, it's completely possible. Ask your professors because most professors are conducting research. Ask your TAs if they are graduate students, if they need any help on their working on their graduate projects. There's a ton of opportunities, and being a freshman is not going to limit you in your ability to do those opportunities unless that professor feels that you need a certain skill that you're going to learn in a later course. But that's not always the case. So don't be afraid if that's something you want to start early, or you feel like there's a subject that you want to learn more about. Go for it. Talk to your professors. We have a research office that has resources to help you see all of the labs and possible positions that are available. So you can also ask them to help you get set up in a potential opportunity around campus.
I just started working in a lab. Dr. VK, who is one of the animal science professors, sends out a weekly newsletter, and it has all the different internship and job opportunities, and it's like divided by species, which is great for animal science students. It's like, do you want chickens, you want pigs? And so there was a little blurb at the bottom that said that one of the animal science professors was looking for lab assistants. So I sent him an email, and I got an interview, and then within a couple of weeks I was set up to start working in the lab. So it's very much read through all the opportunities that you're given, and reach out if it's something that interests you, because they're everywhere. You just have to look.
I definitely recommend FIRE's first year innovation and research experience. It's really 3 semesters. It goes into your sophomore year, but you can choose different concentrations to do research in, and it pretty much introduces you to everything. And beyond that, you can ask your professor, if you get really close to them, to write recommendations later on. I find that really useful. And this semester, I started working in a lab kind of related to what I did in FIRE, with GIS. And I haven't gotten much into it yet, but yeah, that program really helps you find new places to do research.
Wonderful, thank you all. They did put a link in the chat to the research website and the research database if you're curious to see what's out there. There's a lot of great opportunities. We did get 2 questions about 2 of our programs specifically, so I'm going to first turn it over to Jared. We got a question about our agricultural and resource economics program, what it is, and if you can give us a little bit more about the kinds of classes you take and the experience that you've had.
Yeah, so agriculture and resource economics is an economics major that focuses more on the applied economic side. So we apply a lot of economic theory to issues in agriculture, food production, natural resource management, and the environment. I did my field of study in political process. So I focused a lot on applying economic theory to agricultural and food policy. I've taken courses that looked at different subsidy programs for farmers that help farmers both produce more food and more grain, and help them make a living while keeping those grain prices down. I've taken a lot of courses that deal with the commodities markets, which looks at the way that we price different raw commodities, so things like grain right off of the field. And the other sorts of, there are 3 concentrations. There's one that is just in the normal agriculture and resource economics that focuses on lots of different things. Advanced degree prep, where you take a lot more math and some science courses in order to get a leg up in the process toward a PhD. There's agribusiness, which focuses on the business side of agriculture. And then there's an environmental and resource economics concentration, which looks at different economic and legal problems with the environment. So it's a really diverse major that you start out learning a lot of economic theory and math, but then you learn to apply that to a lot of different areas in agriculture and natural resources.
Thanks, Jared. The other program question we got was about animal science. So Eliza, what sets apart our animal science program from others that you might have looked at?
So I looked at a whole bunch of animal science programs. I looked at Vermont, Connecticut, Virginia Tech, all the big schools. One of the things, I mean, I already said this, but the hands-on animal experience right from the first week of classes was a really big pull for me. And then also UMD has a pretty high success rate of getting students into vet schools. 2 of the vets that I work with right now graduated in the last 10 years from UMD. Another one is currently in vet school who graduated with animal science degree from UMD. And then the person who runs the program is also a vet, and so she knows what she's doing in terms of what we need. And then if you look at the requirements on the, is it AVCMA, the Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges, and it has all the requirements, and a lot of schools will make you take most, but then you kind of have a couple of classes that you have to take in between. UMD is good in that the curriculum for animal science makes you hit every single requirement, so that you're never going to find a vet school that you can't apply to because you haven't taken the right class. So that was a really big pull for me. And then also the way the classes are taught, and you're taught to apply the knowledge, not just memorize it. And so Dr. Black, who teaches anatomy, she's had feedback from people who are in vet school now who say they're miles ahead of their classmates because of how the material was taught, and they came in really prepared for it. So those are all really big pulls for me.
Thanks, Eliza. We also got a question about scheduling a tour to visit the farm and campus. At this time, we're only able to offer virtual visits and tours because of COVID-19 and the restrictions we have on campus, but I did just put in the chat, the farm does have a virtual tour. And if you want to meet with us one-on-one, we'd be happy to go into more depth about any of our programs, or maybe try to give you a little virtual tour of ourselves on our phone with you on the other end. So please feel free to get in touch with us. We're happy to connect. We did get a question about our Sigma Alpha professional sorority. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience for those of you in it? I know we have a few here. How has it been support-wise and the community service that you do?
Well, for me, I joined Sigma Alpha last fall. It's a great group of people to get to know. I have at least one other member in all of my classes, and so I always have someone to study with or to ask questions, and so that's great. And then we're peers in a professional sense, but also we get along well as friends, and so it's also a second community that you can have to support you when you are struggling with any academic stuff or personal stuff. And then we do service, so working with animal shelters. When it's not COVID, we go to schools in the community and teach classes about agriculture to elementary school kids. And then we also do things like professional workshops, writing resumes, interview prep, or even just going to a thrift store so that people can find suits and professional clothes that are affordable. So it's a great community to have behind you.
Most definitely. So our major, our college is predominantly animal science. I think that's one of the biggest majors. So I am the only dietetic, nutrition, food science major in there. I believe maybe there's one other. But it just really has me engaged with people from the college. I'll send a picture of my dog, and if something's wrong with her, and all of the animal science students will help me out so I can save myself from a vet bill. Stuff like that, but definitely a big sense of community.
Thank you all. We got a couple different questions, so I'll pose this in the least complicated way about your schedule and how you manage your time with your course load, as well as maybe internships, research, and extracurricular activities. So how do you manage your time, and what are the other things that you do in addition to your classes, and how do you stay such stellar students the way that you are?
Google Calendar, Google Calendar, Google Calendar. I wasn't really big on calendars or agendas in high school, and it is my best friend now. You're able to just schedule everything you have. And put Zoom links in. But I think another big thing to take into consideration is that even though school is very important, make time for clubs. Clubs are just as important. Your social health is just as important as your education. So yeah.
I very much agree with having a to-do list and a calendar. I have my calendar for all my classes, then I have a to-do list, and it's separated into like urgent to do and long term. So all of that stuff is really helpful. Also very much agree with making time for clubs and stuff. to answer that question, animal science is animal science pre-vet, not always. It can be care and management, which is fewer science courses. What was I saying? Yeah, make time for clubs. I'm in SketchUp, which is a sketch comedy club. I do that like 6 hours a week and I love it. All my friends are like English majors, so it's a very different vibe. But that is definitely something that keeps me sane. In between all that, I do have free time. It's just in terms of knowing where your limits are, and also keep it sort of a lighter load if you can your first semester, so then you can join the clubs that you want to join and then take it from there in terms of what you want to add or take away.
I will say I just use the regular old calendar on my phone. I've kind of switched over to digital. I've always been someone who's used like a regular book planner, which I still do for a lot of my schoolwork. But then I have like my class schedule in my phone. A really helpful thing is like things that are weekly. So like weekly club meetings and classes that you have like twice a week or once a week. Save everything as weekly, so it'll just generate for like the next 52 weeks or whatever. Also, again, make time for clubs, make time for relaxed time, make sure you have time to cook if you like cooking, for meals, and also make time for like getting together with friends. Don't think that like all your life is dedicated to school. If there's an event in DC that you want to go to, make time for it in your schedule. That's really important. And I think there's a healthy balance between all of those aspects that doesn't always come freshman year. It's kind of gradual, and you'll kind of learn your own balance to scheduling your calendar and finding everything that you like to do.
So in terms of time management, it may be just me, but I feel like everyone is always learning about time management and what works for them. Each year is different, for me, and I hope for other people. I hope it's not just me, whatever. But I think my major personally, landscape architecture, as a project-based major, is very famous for being extremely intense in terms of time commitment and management. And I will say that, yes, it is wonderful to say, make time for clubs, make time for your personal well-being. It is so important. Please don't get me wrong. That is so important, but it's easier said than done. And it's okay to figure that out in your first couple years and you might never figure it out completely, but different things work for different people. And I like Sidra said, I have a planner and I have my calendar and I have my Google Calendar, and they all do different things. And I'm still trying to figure that out. And I think it's very dependent on your personal preferences, what your major is, and what you want to prioritize in your life. I definitely think that you should prioritize your personal time. I just moved into a house, so I'm really enjoying cooking for myself. I make sure that happens almost every night. And just doing those things for yourself is going to spread out your time the way you want it to. Don't feel like school runs your life, even though it will feel like school runs your life. There are ways around it. I promise. You just have to keep going. Yeah.
I'd say when you first do orientation, talk with whoever the advisor is about your schedule for that semester and making your 4-year plan, because then you can make sure you're taking not the right classes, but the best classes that will work with your mental health or whatever other concerns you may have. Personally, I take 15 credits a semester, and then I have time for like a 10-hour job or internship a week. Plus, there's some time for clubs. I mean, other people can take 18 credits all for them, but personally, that's my limit. And the advisors can work with you to see what you can do and yeah, just talk to your advisors. They can help.
I would say be realistic about the time it's going to take you to do tasks. So something that I learned is that life when you're on a college campus can be unpredictable. So it's really important that you give yourself extra time for assignments because most of them will take longer to do than you initially think. And it's also important that if it's a very large assignment, it can be, or if it's one that you know is going to be difficult, it can feel very intimidating. And so then you put off starting it. For those things, it's important just to do a little bit at a time. So you start to etch away at it and eventually it'll get better. But always make sure that you are being realistic and giving yourself even some more time than you think is going to be able to complete that project, because something could come up. And it's really important that you are being kind to yourself and not having to rush and write a 20-page paper 2 nights before it's due.
As some people have said, I big on my calendar. I am one of the people that takes like 18 to 20 credits some semesters, which does not leave a ton of time for clubs and a social life, but it's definitely feasible. It can definitely be done. You just have to set aside time to make time. If that makes any sense, you have to give yourself a moment to figure out when you're going to do certain things and leave yourself time to like breathe in order to figure out how you're going to make time for the things that you want to do and the things that you have to do.
Really quickly, do not hesitate to take summer classes. Even though summer school might be looked down upon, this past summer, I took 3 classes to lighten my load. Not just this past summer, but the one before, I also took 3 classes to lighten my load so I wouldn't be as stressed, so I can prioritize my mental health, and so I'm able to be engaged in campus things as well. So do not turn down maybe contemplating doing a summer and or a winter course.
Awesome. Thank you all. All right, last 2 questions before we wrap up because we are getting close to time. We got a question about jobs. So for those of you, and I know some of you have put some answers in the chat, what kind of jobs are you considering with your major? And for those of you who might be seniors, have you started applying for jobs? Maybe what are you looking for? Basically, what kinds of careers are you hoping to pursue with your intended academic path?
So I have to do a dietetic internship as a dietetic major. I'm most likely going to have to get my master's, but I'm looking to work within the USDA or, different government programs to increase nutrition education in children, just because not many people have a good nutritional foundation. Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure what I want to go into after I graduate. But I have started, looking at things and kind of just, I'm going to apply to whatever honestly sounds like an awesome experience for me. But I've had experience in like the horticulture, working with public gardens, as well as working in like the floriculture industry. So I'm kind of leaning towards those ends of my major as opposed to kind of like a farming or like a production job. Kind of more of like the finer ornamental horticulture or maybe floriculture, and kind of wrapping that all up into like sustainable agriculture as a whole. So yeah, I'm gonna have to start applying semi soon.
I would say for the ENSP major, there is a wide breadth of jobs that you can apply for coming out of your bachelor's degree. Because even though we have concentrations, ultimately when you graduate with a bachelor in environmental science. So you can take any position where they're looking for someone with environmental skills. So that could be working in the USDA, that could be working in the Department of the Environment, that could be working for the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Any of those potential careers are possible with when you graduate with your degree. I am personally looking into going to law school, but a lot of people who are environmental science and policy majors decide just to go straight into a career after they get their bachelor's degree. And that's a very popular choice. And if their job thinks that it would be beneficial for them to have and more coursework and knowledge, then they can potentially pay for them to go back to school. So that's a path that a lot of people take in the ENSP.
So this is a really awesome question, especially for landscape architecture. And I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to try to go fast, but there are so many things that you can do in landscape architecture. There's so many different jobs to go into. So you can go into really big firms that design really cool things like public parks. You can go into firms that design for hotels and for residences and for there's ecological restoration. So if you're really interested in the environment, but you have a creative mindset, you can redesign and restore ecology, which is super cool. You can work for a really small nonprofit if you'd like. I interned for a place called the Watershed Institute, and there was a landscape architect there that worked for just that nonprofit and did their rain gardens and their pollinator gardens and stuff like that. There's a bunch of stuff to do there, and I haven't decided yet. I'm still playing around. This summer I did an internship at the Washington National Cathedral, working as a horticulture intern there. So I was working with plants and cultivation, which was really different than my experience working plants in the environment, wild in the environment. And they're all amazing opportunities, and it's really cool to be able to design what people experience outside. So there's a lot of really great jobs for this major.
Jared, you can go ahead.
Okay, I was just do not interrupt anyone. I would say I personally am looking at going to graduate school for a different major of mine in religion. But with ARAC, a lot of students in ARAC have the opportunity to work for the USDA, different kinds of agricultural commodity firms, different kinds of product firms. A lot of students go into law school and focus on agricultural issues. Which is actually, there's a course here at Maryland that looks at agricultural law. But the ARAC degree gives you a lot of those economic and mathematic and analytical skills that you would need to do a lot of different kinds of careers. So there's a lot of diverse fields that people go into other than just like the USDA being an economic analyst.
John, did you go? I know we got out of order.
I was gonna say what Maeve said, same as for ENST.
Great. All right, our last question before we wrap up for the night is, what advice do you all have for prospective students during this time as they're applying to college and considering where they would like to go?
I think one important thing is to not only pay attention to the college, but what's around them. What opportunities will the environment provide you? I know some people mentioned that some schools they were looking at are in the middle of nowhere. We are fortunate to be, 45 minutes from Baltimore, 20 minutes from DC. So there are just so many opportunities everywhere. Maryland will set you up for success, but being able to go out into the workplace while you're an undergrad can just be a phenomenal experience.
I'll give you some advice for kind of what I was looking for when I was a senior in high school. I kind of had no idea exactly what school. I had a lot of options, and I kind of couldn't narrow it down for my top three. I made my decision pretty much down to the wire, I think in like April. And the only thing that really helped me was going to all the universities, having a tour, and kind of picking the one that stuck with me a little bit, which in my case was Maryland. I visited Maryland on Maryland Day, which is like an annual spring event that we have. And I remember just going home and just like, I kind of just kept thinking about Maryland. And I was like, I was like, well, I mean, if I can't stop thinking about it, like I gotta pick it. So that was the thing. Definitely now that tours are opening back up, go and visit all the schools.
I agree with that, definitely. Three things for me. For sure, the tours were really important. I toured my top two departments or top three departments I was looking into is Maryland, Temple, and Penn State. I specifically toured with the head of the department. My school is very small. Landscape architecture is a very small major. So that one of the reasons why I was lucky enough to do that, but it was very helpful to hear what they had to say and to hear them sell their program. That was really helpful. To aside from your program, think about your interests. What are you interested in? Do you like sitting outside on a pretty campus? Because I do. I like to do my homework and look at pretty stuff. So I wanted to be on a pretty campus. That was really important to me. Do you want to be near a city? Do you want to be in nature a lot? Do you what are you things that you like to do? And then third, it's really important that you think about the activities that are available. It's really important to think about like the kind of people that you want to be surrounded by, your interests. And fourth, I thought of a fourth thing, shamelessly, go where the money gets you, like a scholarship that allowed me to go out of state to Maryland. So if you find an awesome scholarship school that wants to give you a scholarship that's gonna, bring you to to study at their school, then you should go for that. If that school is interesting to you, don't go somewhere that like you hate. But those are really great opportunities, and they can lead you into great spaces that you didn't know were going to work out. So yeah.
I'd say keep in mind of the location you're looking into, what opportunities around there, not just academic, but also social. And definitely visit every school you go to make sure you get the right vibe from it.
I would say look at your majors that you're would be planning on being a part of when you go to that school, and check out the classes that you would have to take, because that's a great indication of whether or not you're going to have a great student experience at that college.
I just want to echo everyone else about how important the tour is. It's like the best way for you to really see what the campus culture is like, and the way that classes are run, and how students interact with each other and the campus itself. It's one of my biggest regrets about my college application process was not visiting enough of the schools. So I would say that the campus visit is really a very important thing to keep in mind when you're making your decision.
Wonderful. Thank you all. I hope you can give our ambassadors a virtual round of applause. I hope you learned a lot from their experiences and got to hear some different perspectives. As they all mentioned, visiting campus is important. The University of Maryland undergraduate admissions has resumed in-person tours. They're only outside-only tours. They have their restrictions and guidelines and schedule available online. We'll put the link in the chat. In terms of the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources, we're only offering virtual appointments, but we're happy to connect with you and really get to know any of your questions and things that you have. We put our contact information as well as our website in the chat. You can also contact our student ambassadors directly. They each have a profile and their email on our website. At this time, I have a couple more wrap-up slides just to give you a few more pointers throughout this process. So next steps. So for those of you who are currently in high school, seniors in high school looking to apply, the freshman application is open. The early action deadline, which is the priority deadline, is November 1st. We encourage all freshmen who are applying to apply by November 1st. This makes you eligible for financial aid, scholarships, and reviewed for all of our living learning programs, which the university has lots of. We are both on the Coalition and the Common App. There's no preference. You can apply for any of those. And sorry, I forgot to change the year. The university is still test optional for this coming year and for next year. So that means you do not have to submit SAT or ACT scores to be considered for admission. Just letting you know that about 50% of the students who applied last year submitted test scores, which means 50% did not. So you won't be the only person if you don't submit a test score. It's totally up to you. If you have more questions about applying to the university or any of the specifics related to the application, please contact undergraduate admissions directly at applymaryland@umd.edu. We in the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources do not review applications. I don't touch the application process. We're just here to be a resource for you to get to know our programs. So I can't answer any of the specifics, but I will always refer you to go directly to the source with undergraduate admissions. As we got a couple of questions, just to reiterate again, the College of Agriculture and Natural Resources does not have any limited enrollment programs. That means if you mark one of our majors on the application and you are admitted, then you would automatically be admitted into the college. None of our majors have an application process and none of our majors have a competitive edge to them. So please know that if you are interested in us, put us on your application because that will put you directly in contact with us in the spring after admission decisions are out. We are hosting other information sessions about each of our academic programs. So if there's one you want to learn more about, please feel free to sign up. They're all on our website at go.umd.edu/future AGNR. So like tomorrow, our Agricultural and Resource Economics program is hosting a session. Next week and in October, our Agricultural Science and Technology, Landscape Architecture, and Plant Science program is having a combined session. For those of you who might be involved in 4-H and FFA, we're hosting some information sessions with alumni from those programs to talk to you about their experiences. The ENSP program has one coming up in October, and then dietetics and nutritional science and food science have separate sessions coming up later in October as well. So please feel free to connect with us. We're happy to answer your questions, get to know you more. You can contact us at futureagnr@umd.edu, and you can schedule an individual virtual appointment. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We hope you had a great evening and learned lots from our students, and we hope to be in touch with you soon.